What's up, people? Welcome to another edition of the New Breed Podcast, the world's best podcast, talking about everything brutal, new, death, hard, slam, grind, thrash, core, metal. I'm one half of your hosting duo, Jay Horskow. Welcome back. With me, I have my partner in crime, the notorious TIM, Tim Anderson Jr. Tim, how goes it?
Feeling good.
And joining us once again, the irregular regular giving Holiday Kirk and Orion a run for their money with frequent appearances, Mr. Shawn Robbins from r/Numetal. Shawn, thanks for joining us.
What's up? Glad to be back.
We are glad to have you. So this episode, we're going to do another fun one. We're not going to talk about a album per se. We're going to talk about a movie. And what else would we be talking about than dun 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 Woodstock 99? This episode, we're talking about the Netflix documentary series titled Trainwreck Woodstock 99. So all three of us have seen it. Have all three of us seen the HBO one? Have we all seen that?
I have.
Tim, you've seen it. Shawn, have you seen it?
No.
Good. So you can die a much happier man. So, Tim, let's start off with what, in summary, we watched the HBO one. We did that episode with Jimmy Ferrari and Sam Hoyos. We'll have it in the show notes. What is the big difference between this one and that one?
How much better it was done. I mean, the HBO one was kind of just, that was just one actual movie.
It was a movie, yeah.
That one, I mean, I don't want to get into the whole wokeness politics bullshit, whatever. But watching that one where they went with that one, this one actually dives into the actual event and how it just slowly crumbled and slowly turned into a shit pile. And just, I think this one was more well done. If I said that right, it was just done better. It explained it a lot better. You got more interviews with people who were actually there and, gave you their opinion on that stuff. And I think, all the stuff that happened in it was terrible, but you got the point of view from people who were running it and people who were there and people who were in security and stuff like that. And I think it was just very well done. And kudos to Netflix for killing it, because it was great, man.
I would agree that it's infinitely better than, in summary, it's infinitely better. We're going to go into the detail than the HBO one. The HBO one was kind of built in a way that you were just supposed to be mad, right? Yeah, everybody was mad. Yeah. The artists were mad. The attendees were mad. Everybody was mad. Whereas this one opens up with two kids who were 16 at the time. The one dude still has a mullet, talking about how they had the best time of their lives. There was a girl who was 16 at the time. She said she had a great time. There was another girl with all these shaved sides and all these piercings and tattoos. She said she had a good time. This was more of a documentary about what happened, as opposed to, oh my God, it was all aggro, let's point fingers, which was what the HBO one sounded like. So
before you go on, I think the dude with the mullet is still tripping to this day.
Oh, he was having a good time. We should reach out to him and see if we can get him on the show. He was having a fun time. And like you said, this one was not a documentary movie. It was a documentary series. It was 3 episodes. Each episode compromises one day of the festival, and you could kind of see the slow descent into chaos.
Which to me was fucking perfect, because they didn't slap everything into one episode. They went day by day, and I thought that was fucking perfect.
Yeah, you understood. You understood how it progressed.
Yes. Yep.
So, Shawn, what were your thoughts?
I thought,
overarchingly.
Yeah. I thought like like you said, the 3 days kind of lead up to what you so it says it in the title, Trainwreck. You know what's going to happen. But what the show does perfectly is it kind of shows you each instant where you're like, oh shit, that's going to come up later. Or like, oh shit, that's not a good idea. Like, and you kind of watching the small fires kind of start, metaphorically throughout the series, only to know that the 3rd episode, it's going to be where everything explodes. When you see like the burning trucks and everything, the trash strewn about and everything. So it did a great job at just showing, and exactly like Tim said, showed how like it wasn't just like this, like pointing fingers, evil, festival meant to just, rape women and destroy everything. This was generally about people who were trying to make a lot of money and kind of lost sight about what Woodstock was about in the first place, and cause an epic disaster
Right.
And show viewpoints of different people that were in the process, the security, the audience members, the artists, and all that kind of stuff.
Production. Yeah. You're right, Shawn. It's almost like two hands. The one hand was the promoters who were trying to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And the other hand was the attendees trying to have a good time. And when those interests overlap, everything was perfect.
Yeah.
When they didn't overlap, shit was terrible. Mm-hmm. So in our last episode, Jimmy kind of went on a rant, but I wanted to kind of slow down a bit and talk about, for those of us, all three of us were alive and around and remember it when it was happening in real time. Let's talk about, let's go into a little bit more meat and talk about, first of all, the differences between Woodstock 69, which none of us were alive for, at least I don't think, Woodstock 94, Woodstock 99, right? So 69, it's the hippies, right? It was not planned to be that big, and it just happened that big. And there was free food, and there were food tents, and it was the peace and love generation, right? That was kind of honestly, that was the beginning of the end of the hippie movement. The hippie movement, we all know, actually ends at Altamont with the Rolling Stones. If you're not familiar with that story, please dig in. There's what's the documentary? Does anybody know what the documentary of that is? It's not Helter Skelter, but it's what's the name of it, Shawn? It's at the tip of your tongue.
It is. I don't remember.
Just Google Rolling Stones Altamont. You can get that. So that's 69. But then you had 94, which again was at Saugerties. It was the anniversary show. Mm-hmm. And then you had 99, which was at Griffiths Air Force Base, Rome, New York. I'm intimately familiar. My aunt was stationed up there. She retired out of there. She was in the Air Force. Wow. So I'd been on the base. The difference between 94 and 99 is, look at 1994, the general vibe and the bands that they had versus 99. 94 had Blind Melon, right? It had all these fun bands. The heaviest bands in 94 were Metallica, which at that point had the Black Album and really wasn't that heavy anymore, and 9 Inch Nails. The heaviest bands in 99, Rage Against the Machine, Limp Bizkit, Korn, Metallica again, Megadeth. Second stage, you had, people don't remember this, Full Devil Jacket, Reveille, Seven Dust. Yeah. So totally different music, totally different vibe than 94 and 69. And I think, and then also there's a difference of location, right? This was a giant Air Force base, heat island, giant heat island, right? All asphalt, no shade. Let's talk about the promoters. And Shawn, you and I were talking about this before we started recording. Michael and John were the two promoters. Mm-hmm. As the show develops and as the documentary develops, what was your take?
Oh man. So you could definitely tell John was pointing fingers, especially at the Limp Bizkit scene, just kind of like he started complaining about how, Fred could have said like, hey, everybody calm down. Like, what are you fucking, like, what is wrong with you? What do you think? Look at that. Like, that's a sea of people. They want what, you provided them. You provided them one of the most popular heavy bands on the planet right now. And you knew exactly what you were doing. You wanted to make money off this band that was making platinum records. And this is exactly what you get. If you hire a fucking lion for a kid's birthday party and go like, oh shit, like this stupid lion, like, yeah, sorry, like this is exactly what you signed up for. And then you have Michael Lang, who is like, everything's fine. Like, oh, I don't understand what the big deal is. Like every fucking news conference he was having, you're just kind of like, you could tell everyone was looking at each other, was like wanted to shake him by the shoulders and be like, wake the fuck up. Like you're killing people, or like this is a disaster. Like, what are you even doing? And they opened the movie with Michael Lang having the same disposition in 69, and that worked back then because he should have been freaking out, but because he didn't, that's why 69 worked, because you had like, let me see here, Jimi Hendrix, Blood, Sweat and Tears, the band, Mountain, Grateful Dead, Creedence Clearwater, Santana, holy shit. And then he tried to present that same confident hippie aloofness to this with his corporate buddy. And I mean, it just didn't.
It was 30 years later, man. The world has changed.
World's changed, buddy. Gotta grow up.
What did you think, Tim? As he's in mid drink.
To Shawn's point about the opening of it, or I mean, to the one guy like just being nonchalant about everything. I wonder how much of that was him just like knowing what was transpiring, but like also trying to keep it where like he doesn't need the media like swarming it, because when bad shit happens, say like the New York Times or some shit or whatever the fuck it's called, New York Post, whatever. It's kind of like, because you see movies all the time where they're like, oh, there's something really crazy's going, send these motherfuckers down in the plane real quick, and then they make a debacle out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that him doing that was his way of like, hey man, this is a great time, and these 300,000 people are having a fucking great time. Like, he's trying to keep the peace and love there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's trying to keep it.
Yeah, provide the counterpoint. Yeah.
Yeah, and you gotta remember how much money was at stake in this. Because if you think about it, this wasn't for the people, this was for the money.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
He was pleasant, happy-go-lucky, kind of hippie. You know what? And God bless him for living his whole life like that. The postscript is he passed away like 3 days after they finished filming or something like that in 3 weeks.
Cancer, I think.
Wait, what year was that?
No, when they did the documentary.
Yeah.
He passed away not soon after. Yeah.
January 2022, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah. So, I mean, God bless him for living that wonderfully positive life. Like, seriously, God bless him. But he was out of his element. To your point, Shawn, he was out of his element. And then you had John, Shear, whatever, who was the corporate funding guy, like the kind of like the Silicon Valley, what are they called? The angel investor who put it all together, the venture capitalist, right?
But he's the guy that doesn't want to lose his sponsorships and shit. Sorry to cut you off.
He didn't even know any of the bands, and there was the one guy they interviewed who had long hair. He was a production assistant, the gray hair and the beard, where he was the young guy who kept speaking up, saying, "Are you aware of who we're booking at this show?" And they all basically just told him to shut up. And he was like, "Wait a minute, wait.
Did he have like a 19-year-old booking him and stuff?
Yeah. And he was a young guy, and he was the one who said, do you realize who we have showing up at the show and the demographic they're going to attract? Korn, Limp Bizkit, Metallica, Megadeth, Rage Against the Machine. Those 5 right there. Right? Most people don't even think about how Megadeth played, which is kind of amusing in and of itself. But yeah, I think the 2 promoters, they were over their heads. They were over their heads and trying to make money. And let's talk about how they had kids working security. Like not even the three of us, the three of us minus 20 years, they had 500 security guards for 250,000 people. Like, how insane that is.
Yeah.
If you divide that real quick, that like, so 250,000 divided by 500, who can do that?
Was that one for every 5,000 people? Something like that?
That's what I mean. How the fuck do you accomplish that? It's impossible.
No.
But also, how are you going to pay 20,000 security? You know what I mean? Like, it's also an impossible, like, you're stuck. It's like, do I spend most of my money in security, or do I take the chance? And you know what I mean?
No,
which I could have think
those kids were definitely paid in sandwiches.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh
yeah. The one kid, when he talked about Shawn selling his t-shirt, he was like,
yeah.
$400. I'll sell you my t-shirt.
I got another one in my bag. Yeah.
But I also think so. Let's take while we're also thinking about like the demographics and the promoters or whatnot, let's think about, this is the first time a festival of this size has been organized in the United States, right? Woodstock 69 was not meant to be as big as it was. Woodstock 94 was big, but not 250,000 people big. And when you look at stuff like Rock on the Range, look at Rocklahoma, look at the stuff that we have now in 2022, where they have multiple stages over multiple days. Aside from that, the jury's still out on the When We Were Young Fest coming up in October. That's either going to be a brilliant success, or it's going to be Fire Festival 2.0. I can't wait to see it. But again, this was the first attempt at a promoter doing something of this size domestically. Whereas in Europe, we all know that Europe has the festival circuit every summer. Eindhoven, Dynamo, Glastonbury, they've got it down pat,
Yeah.
So that's part of it. I also think one of the biggest reasons that this went so south was when they encountered budget problems and they started outsourcing. So they outsourced all the concessions, right? The food, the water, the vendors. Shawn and I run a pizza stand. We're going to charge whatever the hell we want because we have no skin in the game. We're not married to Woodstock. We're a third party vendor.
There was no oversight on that. There was no oversight.
Right. How insane is that? There was no cap or floor. They were just like, hey, Tim, you want to charge $9 for a shitty meatball parm? Go for it, dude. That's kind of nuts. That's kind of nuts.
They're like, they'll pay for it. They got nowhere else to go. Were they going to go in hangar 4 over there?
That's a great point. Like it comes to like, it's kind of like when beer prices go up. Or cigarette. Let's take cigarettes, for instance. Thank God I quit smoking fucking 6 years ago.
Oh my God, you'd be broke.
Like I seen a dude at a party not too long ago open up a fresh pack of like Newports or something. And I was like, yeah, let me ask you a question. Like, how much did you pay for that? And he was like, $11. I was like, what? And he's
for
just
Newports?
Like, yeah. And you know what he says to me? I'll pay for them if they go up to $21. And I was like, that's how they got you by the balls because you're addicted. And it's to Shawn's point, like, where else are you going to go to get that water? You know what I mean?
Right. All right. Speaking of water, did you that part where the one girl got trench mouth?
Oh.
Right, and she woke up and her mouth was all fucked up. And then the guy who was testing the water said there was bacteria in all the oh my god.
When they opened the door and he said the smell knocked him out.
Yes.
Watching like I remember watching video of them like running in the mud and stuff like that. And then initially, because like I was growing up in New York and I had friends that went to this show, you know, like I was in the Hudson Valley and I had friends that were like, oh yeah, we're gonna go up and it's gonna be Woodstock. And I remember being so jealous and everything. And then seeing MTV do it and all these people like sliding in the mud and stuff. And I was like, that looks fun. Like, this looks so awesome. And then watching the documentary and being like, that's not mud, that's poo.
That's like, shit, yeah.
And then seeing the water bottle fill station like connected to the shit station and all that good stuff. And they're drinking poo-poo water like, holy shit.
Oh, it was
both my wife and I were just kind of like,
I had tons of friends that went and they asked me to go. They're like, dude, Korn's playing, Limp Bizkit's playing, you gotta go. And I'm like, I think it was my 22nd birthday that weekend, and I was working. I was literally trying to land a real job at that point. So like I was like, I can't go. But I mean, so not only did they so let's talk about outsourcing. Not only did they outsource the concessions, they outsourced the trash and the septic. To your point, Shawn, they outsourced the porta potty empties, which we all know have to be emptied at least once a day, if not twice a day at an event that size. And they outsourced all the trash. And one of the quotes, one of the women who was interviewed, who was like part of the team that ran it, where she said the quote of, you know, how day 2 the trash got really bad and everybody, it was just piled up everywhere. And she said, well, a lot of people had the thought of, quote, if the venue doesn't care, why should I, unquote. I thought that was kind of spot on because, like, I mean, think about it. We've all been to massive multi-day festivals. It's never that dirty. Never.
Don't get me wrong. I've seen This Is Hardcore where it started to get out of hand. And that's, I mean,
I've been to Bonnaroo, and that was horrendous. And that was partially my own fault for not being like at least somewhat prepared. But like,
yeah.
4 days of that stuff in that Tennessee heat.
I wanted to say that. I'm glad you brought that up. Why would you think it would be smart to do this in the fucking middle of just that
July? It was the end of July.
What makes you think that's a good idea?
I mean, so if you think about the way they set up the venue, if you can picture it, it kind of, I mean, aside from the fact that the stages were 2.5 miles apart, logistically it made sense, right? Like a giant open airfield, right? There's no traffic around there because it was an airfield. You know, you don't have buildup around it because planes were flying in and out at all times. There was the macadam there. There was the asphalt. I don't understand why they didn't open more of the hangars to let people hide during the day and kind of chill out. Because again, it's a heat island. It's just sun bouncing off concrete, and it was 100 degrees that second day. So I mean, I did 4 days of This Is Hardcore this year. I did, 4 days of This Is Hardcore. I did 3 days of Psycho Las Vegas. Both of those were indoors. Outside, 100-degree weather, watching Korn, Limp Bizkit, Rage, I would have been fucking dead even at that age.
Yeah.
Even at this point, I would have been 22.
Yeah.
But
No.
you also got to think back then the drug use was more not that it was acceptable, but the drug use back then was more of like you didn't have to worry about snorting a line of coke and dying from fentanyl. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
you didn't have to
Everybody
worry
was out
about
of their
taking
mind.
you didn't have to worry about taking ecstasy and being laced with something that's going to kill you. Because back then it was more of a free spirit thing. Nowadays it's more like, oh, dude, if I take that ecstasy pill, who the fuck knows what's in that shit?
And
So
I mean,
back then, more people were willing to experience that kind of thing.
So Shawn brought up MTV, and MTV is definitely part of the problem, right? Because they're a corporate monstrosity. One of the funniest parts of the whole documentary is the clip where the kid is yelling at Kurt Loder. He's like, yo, I'm fucking sick of the fucking Backstreet Boys on MTV. Yeah. And Kurt Loder's like, hey, tell us what you really feel. And the kid goes, I am fucking telling you what I really feel. I'm sick of fucking Backstreet Boys on MTV. Like, they were part of the problem. Like, dude, I'm sorry. I was 22 at this point. If I saw Carson Daly up on a side stage, I would have winged a fucking water bottle at him. Yeah. I'm sorry, I would have. The chode, right? Yeah. Like, but they were part of the problem, right? They were MTV. It was in sync. I mean, they hyped Limp Bizkit, they hyped Korn, and deservedly so, because those Rage, those bands should have gotten big. But yeah, MTV was a corporate monopoly, and they were definitely part of the problem.
Oh yeah. I want to talk about like the first day though. See, I'm the type of dude where I wrote notes for every day.
Okay, go on. So
I think shit, I lost what that were. So my notes are all fucked up. Hold on a second. The best part of the first day in the beginning, where they're doing the part where it shows like the aftermath, and the fucking people say, what is this, fucking Bosnia? I was fucking crying at that, dude. And then the one guy says, good God, oh my Lord, because it was just like cars flipped over and there's just trash everywhere. It looks like a tornado hit the fucking place. I thought that was brilliant to open that up with. The dude saying, is this fucking Bosnia? That was brilliant to open that up with, man. And then that mullet dude that's still tripping, like they nailed the opening of that, man. Just
yes,
great, dude.
Yeah.
Yes. So speaking of that first day, right? Korn, Jonathan Davis having him interviewed, you could tell he was remembering that, going, yo, it was nuts. Right? Like, can you imagine? And we'll talk about it when we get to day 2 in Limp Bizkit. The vibe of being, like he said, you're up on the stage, you're going, I'm playing to 250,000 people, and you watch the ripple out through the audience of the music getting out there. Like, that had to be a once in a lifetime experience.
That's what I was going to say. As a band, how high, like Jonathan said, that's a high that you can never replicate. Like, that's a high that you get without drugs. I mean, I'm sure at that time they were on drugs, but like, that's a high that you'll never feel again, because just like Jay said, feeling that ripple of sound going and just everyone bouncing in unison, that is fucking amazing, dude.
I was kind of afraid that they weren't going to show that Korn set of when he goes, are you ready? And then everyone starts going, because I was just like, because I've watched the YouTube video on that set. Like, it's insane. And I was like, anyone who hasn't seen what that looked like needs to see it. And I'm so glad they gave exposure to what that was. And then one of my favorite parts of the series is when they go, and then here comes Bush.
So I'm so glad you provide that segue, because first of all, I want to hang out with Gavin Rossdale and have a beer. Like, I do want to hang out with Gavin Rossdale and have a beer. Yeah. I'm not, my college roommate, Griff, if you're listening, I know you're not listening, you lazy bastard. When we moved in together, I was like, yo, there's this band Korn, they're awesome. And he's like, yo, there's this band Bush, they're awesome. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Bush? Like, Glycerine? greater Shawn. I don't know about you, but I went back and listened to that first and second Bush album, and they're really good.
They're really good.
Like they're really good.
And
go on, continue.
They could have just been like, and they bombed. They didn't bomb. They actually were able to somewhat manipulate that, not manipulate, but like to calm that crowd down.
Yeah. Yep.
And they actually was just like, they pulled it off.
Well, and also back then, Gavin Rossdale is a huge sex symbol for women.
I know women were going crazy.
Right. Yeah, he
He's
came out
got
with
the shirt off. Yeah,
and they lead with what is it, swallowed? But his quote in the interview was, he said, "I wanted to change people's emotions," and that is the sign not only of a good artist, a good DJ, right, who could read the room and say, "Okay, I need to go in this direction." But yeah, what an amazing band to follow Korn. Yeah. Right, like what day was Jamiroquai? Like, I'm sad Jamiroquai wasn't on this fucking like Virtual Insanity, right, with the fucking hats. Like, why wasn't he on this documentary?
I want to make sure I get this point in too, because I think this was a pivotal point of the first episode. There was a dude who they interviewed, and he says this, and I thought this was fucking perfect. He says, you have to think at that time in 1999, what was the big things in the United States? It was American Pie, Fight Club, and that other movie. He goes, so the United States population is used to, women being sexualized and people fighting each other. I think that was a fucking great point, because back then it was normal to think that way, and it was normal for guys to think they can grope women without their fucking consent. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that that's okay.
It's not right, and it's not acceptable,
at all.
But
it's not okay at all. And if someone did that to my girl, I'd fucking break their face. But at the same time, like when people are saying to Sheryl Crow to show your tits, that was accepted back then.
Yeah, it was a festival thing.
Yeah,
it was a festival thing. It was the late 90s. It wasn't even a festival thing. It was a late 90s thing.
And
that's I remember hearing that at shows at the E Center in Philly.
Absolutely,
right?
Dude. And I think that's where the HBO one failed, because it's like, listen, buddy, like, I understand in 2021 at that time it's not acceptable, and it's, people want to rag on that shit, and like I said, it's not acceptable. But you have to remember, back then it was the normal way of living. That was the normal thing.
Let's talk about the biggest failure of this whole Woodstock 99. The biggest fucking failure is that no one has released full video from all the stages.
Yeah.
Because they taped it.
I've looked everywhere for
I know. I want to see the fucking Jamiroquai set. I want to see the live set. I want to see Everclear. I want to see Full Devil Jacket.
Fatboy Slim.
I want to see Fatboy Slim. I want to see
Full Devil Jacket's on YouTube somewhere.
Is it really? I've seen the Seven Dust shit, and it's pretty good. Seven Dust set's good.
Yeah. He's so young in that video too.
I know, they're all so young.
Back to my point though, real quick. I don't mean to cut you guys off, but you have to remember too, when you do a pay-per-view for something and you're charging $59.99 back then, that's a lot of money back then.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You have to remember getting all the sex and the naked people, because pay-per-view, obviously back then it was porn, and
you were opting in.
Like
yeah.
You had to make sure that looked great for people, because the people that are in, say, like California, they couldn't fly out, they couldn't really get that experience. You're getting that experience from the pay-per-view. So seeing a naked woman or a naked dude just walk around all fucked up, like, that's the shit that people wanted to see.
Yeah.
So like they capitalized on it perfectly, and you really can't blame these people for it, because all in all, this all comes down to money. Let's be fucking straight to the point here.
Yep. So let's talk about that. Let's go to day 2, right? So there was a quote in the second episode, I think it was the second episode, where Kirk Hammett from Metallica actually said peace and love equals capitalistic venture. And he nails it, because it was all about money. In 94, the walls came down and they had a bunch of people come in. So now how did they react in 99? They built an 8-mile wide compound.
Yeah.
And they had it chained off, and it was kind of nuts. And I mean, I kind of get it. But Shawn, though, in hindsight, right? You were in your 20s, so I was in my 20s. You were in your teens, late teens. In hindsight, I thought to myself, I should have fucking driven up on Saturday and just crashed the fence, just like smashed the fence and snuck in, because everybody else was. Everybody else
was just maybe an hour and a half from where I lived. Like,
where did you live, Shawn?
Fishkill.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Again, my aunt was up there. My family's up in the Finger Lakes region. It's not that far from there. My aunt
No.
was actually in Rome. She was stationed in Rome. So she was still living up there at the time. So I would have had free. I could have snuck out at night and had somewhere free to sleep. It wouldn't have been in a tent or surrounded by dudes on ecstasy, like losing their minds.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that was a funny subtext. The one guy who takes the ecstasy and then goes to the rave tent, wakes up the next morning and realizing that, oh shit, it's now just kicking in and like, I got to go to work and I'm like kind of losing it. Yeah.
Oh man, that was great.
Yeah. So I mean, the other thing that they don't really talk about, well, they do talk about in this documentary, which is a big difference than the HBO one, is we were all young once, and I think we all could agree, everyone watching and listening, young people do dumb shit. As young people, we do dumb shit. Yeah. And that doesn't make it right. It's a factual observation of young people do dumb shit. So when you have young people in a giant 8-mile wide compound where they can't leave, they're paying $7 a bottle for water, they're hungry, the water that's free is giving them fucking trench mouth. Shit's gonna get real.
They're gonna just destroy shit, yeah. And you play break stuff.
So let's talk about that. So let's talk about Saturday, right? So there was a somebody made a remark. I think it was that same woman who talked about the venue, where she said there was a total lack of respect all across the event. The lack of respect of the promoters for the attendees. There was a lack of respect from the attendees to the venue. The only people who were truly taken care of and treated right were the artists, right? Because they showed that artist compound in the middle of that second episode, and they're getting free Converse, and there's a barbecue, and there's P. Diddy, and everybody's hanging out, and it sounds like a great time. And on the other side, you have these kids hiding under trailers because it's 100 degrees with no shade on asphalt, garbage everywhere. Why are we surprised it turned into fucking Mad Max?
Okay, let me add this in, though. I don't know if you guys talked about this real quick, but I think one of the biggest mistakes that they made was the rave stuff after. I think that if you cut that out, you kind of have a better outcome, because let's be honest here. How many of us have went to a fucking club in our 20s and it's 3 a.m. and you're fucked up?
Well, keep going, Tim.
Think about it, though.
Yeah.
Somehow these people got all these wild ass drugs in there, ecstasy, acid, shrooms, all that kind of stuff. What did you think was going to happen? You should have had Bush play, and you should have said, okay, great time. We'll see you in the morning.
Yeah.
Exactly. Go to bed, get hydrated, all that stuff. But when you add the rave in, then people start losing their fucking minds. And what do you think is going to happen?
I'm so glad you said that. And I'm not sure if it was this one or if it was the HBO one where they had someone talk about, we naturally have a circadian rhythm where we're up and we're asleep and we're up and we're asleep. Yep. And if you're going from fucking, I don't know, Korn, Bush, the rave tent, the next morning you're starting off with Willie Nelson, you're going through Rage Against the Machine, you're going through Limp Bizkit, and then you're going through Fatboy Slim, right? Your body is kind of thrown off. So add the drugs, the lack of the rhythm, the lack of the sleep, and you kind of go crazy with the heat. You're right. Like, that being said, though, Tim, I want to drink beers with Fatboy Slim.
Yo, that dude was hilarious. I felt
so bad for him in that.
He was like, yo, I was just getting going.
Yeah.
And there's a fucking truck in the middle of the venue.
But like, that's the mistake you made right there, is you gave too much leeway.
Yeah.
You should have just ended it. Hey man, that's the perfect time for your crew to come in, clean up a little bit, get the water restocked, get the toilets unclogged, you know what I mean? You missed the perfect opportunity to have a show that went on the next day and just went and just followed it to where it could have been. I just think the rave is the biggest mistake they made.
Yeah, I mean, so we talked about Psycho Las Vegas, right? They had, at the end of the night, there was always a DJ set, and it was indoors. It got cut off at like 3 a.m. And they would cut it off. Like, realistically, they could go all night, which I'm kind of pissed I missed it, because, Shawn, we were talking about Creeping Death went on at 1:40 on Monday. Health went on at 2 a.m. for a DJ set. And I would have really liked to have seen that.
I love Health.
But oh, it's fantastic. And the collab stuff they do is amazing. But You're right, Tim. The fact that you gave people the ability to keep going.
Yeah.
Why don't I just do some E and stay up all night?
You didn't have
Yeah.
the amount of people to maintain that too, because I've been to Bonnaroo where it's like the main stage ends at 11, and it's like, I don't know, Jay-Z or something like that, and then you have Deadmau5 performing until fucking 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. But you also have the security, the facilities, the organization in there to able to kind of corral that to happen. So you didn't have that with Woodstock.
Before shit pops off at Bonnaroo, they have a actual security team that's
Actually,
like, hey,
Yeah.
back the fuck up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even for the people that work there, it's nuts. When I was at Cycle Las Vegas, Dan and I were talking to one of the bartenders. Her shift ended at 3 a.m. 3 a.m. it ended. And she was outside the Rose Ballroom where the last band went on at like, I don't know, 12:40. Mm-hmm. So they were done at like 1:30. She had to be back at 9 a.m. So the entire bartending staff was sleeping in the parking garage in their cars. So to your point though, Shawn, there needs to be a cutoff where everything is done and it ends. But God bless them, they just kept they tried to keep the party going. And it kind of got nuts. So let's talk about some of the Saturday sets. I don't know if either.
Before that, can we talk about the sight of the porta potties that morning? Oh my God, dude.
Where the one guy's like, the guy's trying to interview the other guy and he's going,
yeah, close that door. Yeah.
It's like trying to yak. Oh,
I mean, I just
would have snorted enough Imodium and then I wouldn't have shit for like a month and a half, but there's no way. It's terrible.
I know this is like, fucking gross, but like, they didn't have enough toilet paper.
Yeah.
People were wiping their ass with fucking clumps of grass and shit.
Yep.
That's
their white beater and throwing it on the floor.
Yeah.
You got to remember too, when you're raving at 3 a.m. and you're fucked up, you don't give a shit where you're pissing or shitting. You don't care.
Yeah.
It's just poorly. Like, I'm going to keep saying it. That was just the mistake right there. And I will say that till the day I die. I mean, I wasn't there, but like that you just got to think like you were saying about Bonnaroo. Like, if you tell people that you're done, a couple people are obviously going to fight it. But then as the crowds dwindle, people are going to say, oh, all right, you know what? It's a good idea. We should go take a nap. And I think that would have changed everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, Jay, sorry to cut you off again, but I just wanted to make that point.
So let's talk about some of the performances on Saturday, right? Let's do some positive shit. I have watched that Kid Rock set so many times, and I never get past the intro because the intro is amazing, right? Right, Shawn, you're smiling, you've seen it, right? The drummer's going, and he comes out in the fucking pimp, fucking fur coat in 100-degree weather, and then he goes, and they go into Ba with Ba. I don't care if you don't like Kid Rock. That's a fucking monster set. Mm-hmm. He put on a hell of a show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the one dude saying he was like, he came out in this fur coat and it was so fucking hot. I don't know how he did it. And it's like, you got to remember, bro, he was in a trailer with that was fucking probably 50 degree.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you don't give a fuck.
I would have thrown bottles at the Dave Matthews Band because I think my personal idea of hell for me is being trapped for eternity listening to Tripping Billies or something like that's hell for me.
100.
Honestly, what's funny about that though is that out of this whole festival and what it was probably supposed to be going toward, it probably should have been more Counting Crows, Dave Matthews Band, Alanis Morissette,
Jamiroquai. Yes,
you probably wouldn't have had all this happen. So when you had like Wyclef Jean come up and then Counting Crows and they, DMB, it was just kind of like, well, there you go. There's your bands. If you didn't want shit to go down, and then you went from Alanis Morissette to Limp Bizkit.
What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is Limp Bizkit firing on all 6 cylinders.
Yeah.
This is the new album is out. I have watched that set numerous times, and I'm sorry, that was a band hitting their perfect stride, just crushing a room. Like
that's
just
a
crushing
band
the room.
selling records right there.
Yeah.
You know who it reminded me of? I don't know if you guys remember seeing Code Orange back in the
Yeah.
in the days before, just when they released what's the
Forever?
one?
King.
Forever, yeah,
Or
Forever. Right after
Forever.
King, when they did Forever, and seeing them live during those times, they were so tight. Like it was almost like one single organism. That's the same thing I thought of when I was watching that Limp Bizkit set. I was like, they're like a single-celled organism working together as just one entity, and it's probably one of the best sets that they've ever had. Like, done.
Imagine being in
Absolutely.
Philly and getting to see them every other week, man. Like you could see them just getting to be that fucking monster that they are now. But that's a fucking great point, man.
It's a great comparison too, because they're a band where they were good, and then they hit that moment where they went from here to here almost overnight.
Yeah,
where it was like, yo, they're now a force,
for better or for worse, though, too, because I think unfortunately it went both ways. People were just like, that was fucking awesome. Other people were just kind of like, that was fucking terrible, and that's unfortunately was part of the negative aspect of the band.
Yeah, the newest song, Shawn, the newest song is kind of like Code Orange Man 5000, not a whatever.
It is Paraman. Yeah. No, I agree.
You have Limp Bizkit, you have Rage, and Metallica. And Metallica at this point, that it's the Black Album, it's Load, it's all that shit. It's not the aggressive like Master Puppet shit, but still, you have three aggressive bands back to back to back. Yep. And Rage at this point, they were literally a force firing on again all cylinders. So
I mean, killing in the name of and shit. I mean, what the fuck did you expect? I want to go back to the Limp Bizkit thing though.
Shoot.
So Fred back then is an icon, right?
Yes.
I mean, how many people fucking adored that dude? He had the fucking style.
Dude, I still do. I'm fucking 45 years old.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to the Halloween show and shit. But
yo, are you coming with me? 2-hour open bar, dude. It's halfway sold out. Come on, man. Come on.
I have a party that night. But like, if you think about it though, like Fred, he's thinking to himself, listen, man, there's 300,000 people here. I can set this motherfucker off and sell 300,000 records tomorrow. I don't blame him one bit for being an asshole.
Nope.
No.
Because you have to think, he is a fucking artist. He's there to perform. He's not there to
entertain.
He's there to entertain. He's not there to be this mediator. He fucking writes songs called break stuff.
Yeah.
You have to be in the moment and make that moment as big as possible.
And I think we should give credit to the documentary for not blaming Limp Bizkit. They definitely showed that, this is what happens when you bring a lion to a kid's party. Like this is what you asked for. So
this is what happens when you bring a knife to a gunfight. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And you have like you said, Shawn, they didn't blame Limp Bizkit. It's day 2 of 3, 100-degree weather, no shade, $7 for a bottle of water, porta potties that are overflowing. People were kind of, it was turning into Lord of the Flies. And to your point, Tim, if I get up on that stage and there's 300,000 people out there ready for me, I am going to go 110%. I'm going to give them it all, and I'm going to give them a show that they never forget. And it was really telling that when there was like Kurt Loder or somebody was sticking a mic in his face as he was walking up the stage, and he went, yo, it wasn't our fault. Or it wasn't our fault. And it wasn't. It wasn't their fault. They were there to entertain. The fact that it turned into like World War Z zombies trying to rip plywood off the fucking sound tape, well, that's not Limp Bizkit's fault. That's a result of the fucking kids being kids. But you're goddamn right. I would get up on stage and try and nuke the room. That's what you're there for.
Well, listen, look at a prison riot. If you fucking lock up people that much and you don't give them human rights, what's going to happen?
Exactly.
It's the same scenario, man. I mean, it's you gotta sit back one day and blame yourself, not Limp Bizkit. You gotta blame yourself.
Yes, you created that environment, which led to that. The one guy from ABC News who was kind of amusing for most of the whole documentary. At one point, at this point, he was like psychoanalyzing Fred with the id, the ego, the super ego. I was yelling at the TV like, "You schmuck!" Like he was like you said, Tim. He's a musician. He's an entertainer. He was there to entertain. Everybody there had the fucking time of their lives. what are we worried about?
Yeah.
Because the fires didn't start Saturday night.
Mhm.
Yeah. I want to make another point here too. I understand that blaming the dudes for groping women and stuff is the right scenario, but at the same time, on Saturday, when you have that many dudes around and chicks are, taking their tops off and just
Dudes are dumb.
doing
We're
it at
dumb.
will, you're kind of giving dudes the, hey man, here's an opening for you to
Guys
grab
are
me.
dumb. Like, look, guys are dumb. Young guys are dumb. You put
Yeah.
dumb young guys in the heat with beer, they're gonna do young
Brat
dumb
dudes.
shit.
Yeah,
and
I
it is
mean, like,
not excusable. Like you said, it's not excusable.
It's
not right. I mean, I would never want my daughter to be in that situation. And
But-
dudes, and there's no excuse for that. There's just
this
no
is
excuse for that.
attention-seeking behavior, though. So you have to expect attention-seeking behavior to turn into opportunity. You know what I mean?
Was Fatboy Slim day 2?
He was day 2, yeah.
Day 2.
So, first of all, I want to party with that dude because he seems like Norman Cook seems like a really fun time. When he's like, "Yo, there's a fucking van in the middle of the fucking fucking rave tent," that's wild. Go back and listen to his albums if you haven't listened to his albums. What was it? On the Floor of the Boutique he did, and he did a bunch of other stuff. He's amazing. Live at Brighton Beach, he's still great. He's still great. So let's go to day 3, right?
Wait. Hold. Do you remember the paramedics' description of Limp Bizkit set?
No.
Dude, the paramedic sitting on the seat of the ambulance, and he was just like, I just remember them going on, and it was just so overwhelming. I just said, fuck this, I quit. Because he said it was like a fucking just earthquake went off, and it was just like people were coming. He said there was 90 people a minute coming in for fucking like heat stroke, and
it was 100 degrees. You had 500 security guards, no water, garbage everywhere. Shit was gonna get weird, and it got weird. It turned. They kind of drove it like, hey, we could either go into like fucking Lord of the Flies, or we could go into this wonderful utopia. Let's go to Lord of the Flies. It's like that meme, right, where the car makes the brakes and goes off to the one side. It's like we can have everything go well, or we can have chaos. Well, let's go to fucking chaos.
Yo, Fatboy Slim though. Let's get to that, like you said, Jay. When he was saying, like, looking out into the crowd and there was people just bent over having sex, like in a line. How many like pregnancies and STDs do you think were just
I can't even
Woodstock,
imagine.
baby.
like 9 months later, it's like, I don't have no clue who the dad of this is, or if this kid is.
But
I have no clue
of,
how I got this gonorrhea.
Speaking of Fatboy Slim, go back and listen to "You Come a Long Way, Baby." It is a fucking monster album. Like, it is a monster album. And the one he did afterwards, which was it Halfway Between the Gutter and the Stars?
Yeah.
Monster.
Is he a UK dude?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, think about what was off that album. Rockefeller Stank, Gangster Tripping, Praise You, Right Here, Right Now. It was just like, I remember listening to it back then. I was like, oh, this is on here too? It's just like over and over and over and over again. So many hits.
Yes. And even though he's like, when you see him, he's totally cringe now, but even Moby, right? Moby with Play.
Oh,
Every
God,
single
he is
10, I know he's insufferable with 10 of those 12 songs
Mm-hmm.
have all been licensed to something.
Yep.
So that I mean, that's got to tell you something. It's got to tell you something.
When they show the part of that fucking vehicle just driving into the crowd, that is fucking crazy.
I was laughing.
Dude.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's scary, wild shit right there, man.
Yeah.
And
that's one of those things where you turn over and you're like, so here we are.
And that's back to my point where the raves were just a bad fucking idea, man.
Mm-hmm.
But
all right, so let's
go to. I want to start off day 3 here, but when day 3 starts off and they show the people, just like there was like the dude walking through and he's just like, "Is that girl dead?" And it's like
everybody's like lying on the ground, like.
But was there any reports of people actually dying there?
Dying there? Do you remember? Shawn?
They don't cover it in the documentary, but we looked it up in the middle of it. Jess and I. And
2 deaths were reported during the festival. A 44-year-old succumbed to the heat on Friday, and he had actually been at Woodstock 69. A 28-year-old woman was hit by a car while walking along the road while leaving the concert.
yeah.
And then there was a guy who collapsed during Metallica. He died on Monday. The cause of death was hyperthermia as a result of an enlarged heart and obesity.
Yeah.
Damn.
See.
But they had nobody else died. 42 to 44 people were arrested over the course of the festival. 10 state troopers and 2 state police supervisors were demoted or suspended for their behavior at the festival.
Well, I mean, it got to a point where even the security and cops were like, fuck it. If no one cares, why should we? Like Shawn said earlier, you know?
Yep. Yeah. The best, I think the best quote, and we're going to get into day 3, was from Tom Morello in the New York Times, where he said, "Hey, man, leave the kids alone. I've had enough of the frenzied demonization of young people surrounding Woodstock 99. Yes, Woodstock was filled with predators. The degenerate idiots who assaulted those women, the greedy promoters who wrung every cent out of thirsty concert goers, and last but not least, the predator media that turned a blind eye to real violence and scapegoated the 250,000 music fans at Woodstock 99, the vast majority of whom had the time of their lives." And he's right. Mm-hmm. He's completely right. Most of the people that went had a really good fucking time. Mm-hmm. The promoters were greedy, and the media made it seem terrible. And fucking John Norris and Carson Daly, like where John Norris talks about like he escaped in a van and they drove across a cornfield and he felt like his life was in danger. Dude, this isn't like fucking the evacuation of Afghanistan. Like, what are you talking about?
This wasn't like World War Z. Yeah. What were they going to do?
Great movie, by the way. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about Sunday. So Sunday morning starts with the press conference, which was, Shawn, kind of a bad idea. Would you agree? Right? And then they have that one woman who was kind of histrionic, like there were people being killed, there were people being maimed. It's like, yo, hold on. Nobody was maimed. It was just kind of rowdy. It's what happens.
Yeah.
The big thing I think that contributed, the 2 things that I think contributed to the shit just falling apart at the end of the day was, first of all, the secret headliner, that rumor. Shawn, imagine being 22, you've been up for 3 days, you're having a fucking blast, you smell terrible, you haven't shit right in a couple days because the porta potties are a mess, and there's a rumor of a secret headliner.
What were the rumors? Like, what did the people think that it was going to be? Bob Dylan? Who else was people?
Bob Dylan was one. Who was? They also thought maybe like Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson.
That was something I had never heard before too, because I thought that was like another
strategy,
pulling out the Jenga piece. Like of this, essential train wreck of what was happening. I never heard that before. I don't know if the HBO documentary ever covered it.
That's Shawn's cat.
My cat won't stop asking for attention.
The rumor was Michael Jackson. It was Stevie Wonder. It was Guns N' Roses doing a reunion set.
Oh yeah.
But think about it, right? Think about us when we were that age. You're at a festival, you've been drinking, you've been partying, you're not really sleeping. There's a rumor that there's going to be some mind-blowing secret headliner. So you're like, yeah, I'll stick around. And if you remember our other interview with Jimmy Ferrari, he's like, dude, I was home and showered and eating when everything started falling apart. But if you stick around till the end and you find out the secret headliner is a Jimi Hendrix hologram, you're going to be like, yo, let's burn this motherfucker down. And that's what they did.
I don't blame them.
No, not at all. So you have a secret headliner, right, which contributed to it. There was another quote in the episode which I thought was really kind of great. There was the same woman again who was highly quotable, said, by day 3, it wasn't just the young males. Everyone was pissed off. And I think that's I don't know if you agree, Shawn. I think that's a fairly true statement, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, you're not sleeping. The garbage is piling up. The water's giving you trench mouth. The porta potties don't work. Whatever water or food is left, you're paying a lot of money for. And then on the back of all this, when all this is happening, you hand out candles.
I thought that was that was another thing that like I didn't know about. And that was just like, as soon as they started handing out the candles, I was like, oh, you fucking idiots. Like, what the hell are you doing?
And Shawn, not for nothing, maybe at our age, like I'm 45 at this point, maybe I'm like, yo, that's just a bad idea. There's nothing good that comes of that. Like, why would you do that? And yet they did it. And it's and then the whole story in the documentary where the young guy who was like, yo, do you realize the bands that you're booking kept saying, why are we gonna hand out candles? This is not a good look. And that's what they did. And then so that happens, right? And Shawn, I think we can agree that there is a certain part of the population that's going to torch shit regardless. And there's folks like me and you who are like, yeah, this is probably a bad idea. I don't really want to get caught up in this. But then the Chili Peppers play Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Flea is already naked at this point.
Yeah.
So they're there to party. What did you think is going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean,
it goes back to that whole hippie mentality where it's just like they still on fucking day 3, they didn't like think to themselves like, all right, let's look around a bit. The walls have come down, like literally, and people are like, it stinks out here. It's hot. People are mad. Like this went to go, like this showed you that these people were, in their little air conditioned trailers, getting fed, getting hydrated. They didn't know what was going on there. They weren't listening to everyone going like, hey, they're fucking pissed. Maybe we should scrap the candle thing. They were just like, no, peace, love, and all that other shit. Like, let's just do the candle thing and it'll be beautiful. And it showed the separation of the organizers and the audience.
Yes. And the thing that I always think about when we talk about Chili Peppers and we talk about the candles and we talk about the bonfires, who went on first? This is my eternal question. If you're listening and you were there or please email us. Who went on first? The Red Hot Chili Peppers or Megadeth? Like, was Megadeth like playing Holy Wars at the other end of the fucking venue, right, with his flying V, Dave Mustaine's going nuts, not realizing that like Lord of the Flies has happened 2.5 miles away? Or I really want to know.
I mean, I know the show could have like only gone so long, but it would have been interesting for them to show some of that West stage performances and how that correlated with the East stage. Because remember what was going on in the East stage leading up to Red Hot Chili Peppers, which, let's be honest, they weren't an aggressive band, but people were still pissed off at that point anyway. But you had Willie Nelson, Everlast, Elvis Costello, Jewel, who people were loving Jewel at that point. But
damn, she looked good there too.
Yeah, she's still a good looking woman.
But at the West Stage, you had Our Lady Peace and Seven Dust and Godsmack and Megadeth and hammer after hammer after hammer.
Yeah, Collective Soul, Rusted Root, send me away.
I guess they were saying maybe that the majority of the audience had moved to Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then maybe you had a few metalheads over at Megadeth and be like, fuck those Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely would have left the Chili Peppers to go see Megadeth. I don't know. I would have been totally divorced from, and that. So Shawn, you bring up an interesting point that none of these documentaries have touched on. The fact that there were 2 different stages and you had one half of the venue just kind of losing their mind and the other half was like, yo, I want to hear fucking Peace Salesman, who's buying?
Yeah.
How much of like the lunacy comes from Flea just being naked and whipping his dick around? And I mean, you know what I mean?
But remember, they did 94 with the giant light bulb costumes. So they have a reputation to uphold.
That's true.
Yo, I'm sorry. Tim, maybe we do a deep dive on this because it is totally outside our target audience. We deep dive Mother's Milk from the Chili Peppers. Shawn, how good is that album?
It's pretty good. I have to go back and listen to it.
Go back and listen to it tomorrow. You're going to go, I want to come on. It's awesome.
My favorite record is the one with Navarro.
Really? 1 Hot Minute?
fucking love that record.
Mother's Milk is
I
that's
bought
it.
1 Hot Minute for like $2 at the used like CD section.
We're
Great
definitely
record.
doing a Chili Peppers deep dive. If you're watching, if you're listening, and you like the Chili Peppers, please reach out and let us know. We would love to have you on. But yeah, I mean, so they handed out the fucking candles. What did you think was going to happen?
Mhm.
Like, I mean, it's easy for us to say as adults, but in our 40s, late 30s, whatever. But if I mean, 22-year-old Jay, who's been up for 3 days, hasn't showered, hasn't shit right. I hang out, listen to Fatboy Slim. I've watched aggressive music, and you're handing me a candle. I'm probably going to torch something.
Yes.
Because young people are, again, Tim, I think you missed it. You stepped away for a second. Young people are stupid.
Absolutely. I mean,
and then when they started burning stuff down, when the fire started starting, it was so funny the way they treated the audience. Like, oh no, they're roaming over to the merch tent, and then they're like, "Pack up your shit, hurry up!" Like,
well, didn't Chili Peppers play Jimi Hendrix?
Yes.
Fire. Yeah.
Yes, they played
Yeah.
Fire, which is on Mother's Milk. Again, it's an amazing album.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you're just asking for it after that.
But the scene of the documentary, I don't know if you caught it, Tim, where the production people are in like the production office, and there's some dude like nailing 2x4s up against the door, like, yo, they're gonna break in, it's gonna be rowdy. Like they thought it was like some Mad Max shit.
Yeah.
It's like, yo.
I love how the one organizer said at one point, he was like, "Oh yeah, them ripping the walls down was just them taking a piece of memorabilia, it's a piece of
Souvenirs.
love, man."
They were
And
taking
it's like,
souvenirs.
Yeah.
nah, motherfucker, they were ripping that shit down because they were wild as fuck. They
Yeah.
didn't take that shit home. Oh, it's just
Yeah.
a great piece to keep. And I'm like, yeah, it is, but they weren't doing it for that. I mean, I could imagine someone keeping a piece of that and selling it, and it would sell for a pretty high value, but like dude, if you really thought that, you're really dumb. But at the same time, I think he was just saying that to just play it off, you know.
I really
Yeah,
love
well-
that one hippie lady too that was going around, and who was she?
Was she the
hanging out-
photographer?
I think she was the photographer. She was hanging out trash bags on the.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
she
and they
was,
were
yeah.
like telling her to eat a dick. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, she was like what Michael should have been. She realized pretty early on that this wasn't Woodstock '69 audience. This was something else.
Yes.
So she kept on going back and be like, you might want to, like, this is fucking wild. Like, I can't go out and hand out trash bags.
How much of this do you think would have been solved if they would have did it in a field instead of the hangar, though?
Well, field, and then a slightly different lineup. You might have had something different.
Okay, so the question is, if you had to do Woodstock '99 over again and you wanted to make sure it was successful, what changes would you make?
I do it in a field. I don't have raves.
Okay, so a field, no 24-hour entertainment.
Yes.
Shawn, what would you suggest?
So, I mean, obviously 18, what was it? 99. So I was 17. So, obviously I wanted to see Korn, Limp Bizkit, Megadeth, Seven Dust, and Reveille like at that time. But if you were trying to make Woodstock, you can't have those bands.
Absolutely. 100%.
You got to have whoever was big back then. That kind
Who
of
was Collective? It was, you're right, Shawn. You were right before. Dave Matthews,
Yep.
live.
Yep.
Collective Soul,
Yep.
Counting Crows,
Gin Blossoms.
Gin
Blossoms,
Blossoms, yeah.
Yep.
Bush,
Third Eye Blind, Goo Goo
Bush
Dolls,
should have
all
headlined
that
and
stuff.
closed the stage.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
Third
And
Eye
then you
Blind,
cut it.
yeah.
Yeah, cut it right there.
cut
Yep.
it right there, and then that's it. You don't add those other bands, or you make another festival called Beat the Fuck Up Fest, and
Right, and it's Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Cannibal Corpse. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
yeah. But
I think, picking the right bands, different locale, no rave tent.
Do
I
it in
think
September, not July.
Yeah, you don't do it in the middle of the summer. You do it in the fall or in the spring when it's cooler, when you can at least guess on cooler weather.
better oversight over your vendors, so that they don't
Yeah,
overprice the
right.
water.
Ceilings and
Actually have
floors.
waterfall filling stations and shit. Yeah.
You don't hand out fucking candles.
Oh my God. This is the second documentary where we're like, yo, why would they hand out the fucking candles?
And you know
I
what you
think-
hand out? You know what you hand out when you first walk in? Condoms.
Yeah.
Condoms, drug test kits, and the water purifying tablets. I think when I went to Psycho Las Vegas, I think you were allowed to bring water bottles in. I think. Because I had an Nalgene that I left in the room. I kept forgetting to bring it, but I mean, really, is it really going to impact that much of your bottom line?
Mm-hmm.
But let's do this, Jay. Let's compare. I know you weren't here, and I know none of us were, but let's compare a Woodstock to Psycho Las Vegas. You're at a hotel. There's control. There's people that can go to their rooms. There's, there's not a hanger and shit. So how does, like, when you do a festival at a place like that, it kind of takes the part where you can fuck shit up out of the equation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think anything got trashed while I was there. I mean, again, you're paying, it's not an insignificant amount of money, right?
Yeah,
but I think with tickets, lodging, airfare, food, beer, the whole nine, I think I spent $2,000 over the course of a weekend.
Yeah, and I remember
No,
Dan
it's not
saying
cheap.
I remember Dan saying the bathrooms were like pristine at all times.
Oh, but the bathrooms were clean. The food was always good. Granted, it was expensive, but again, it's Vegas. It's in a hotel in Vegas.
Yeah.
The mail that we got where we left the hotel and went across the street was fantastic and real priced. I mean, we hit it for happy hour. I had like 6 mules and this giant cheeseburger was fantastic. But yeah, you need to make sure your people aren't like bleeding money. You don't hand out fucking candles. You don't go 24 hours. You find a cutoff that makes sense. And you honestly, you find a venue that is pre-built to handle this type of event.
Yeah.
Didn't we say this earlier on in the podcast too? Is that like this was kind of like the first of its form in a way?
Yes.
Like they were other festivals, of course, but like this was like the biggest on this scale of things. And seeing now places like Glastonbury and Coachella and Bonnaroo and the one that you went to, the Psycho Las Vegas ones.
Rocklahoma, Rock on the Range, like they've got it down.
This Blue Ridge one coming up too, with like every fucking band on the planet is like on the lineup. Like I think there's a lot of crossover of people who have been like, here's what works, here's what doesn't. I think with this, it was obviously all the other stuff problems that we've come up with, but also because it was the first of its kind in a way.
Yeah, but to your point as well about like Blue Ridge and stuff, you mostly have really heavy bands. So people are going to get tired after moshing for 3 heavy bands in a row.
Yeah.
To the point of that is you have Dave Matthews Band, then you have Rage Against the Machine. So your blood starts getting pumped, and then it goes down to Sheryl Crow, and then it gets pumped again. Like you're giving people the opportunity to be a wild animal with like a Hellfest or something. It's constantly wild animal shit. So people are going to tire themselves out.
Yeah.
And people are going to want to chill out. So I think to that point, it's great to think that way, because it's if it's like if you throw a pop punk festival, everyone's happy as shit the whole fucking time. You know what I mean? If you throw a straight death metal festival, everyone's already headbanged their head off their shoulders 3 bands in. So it's like, you're already done,
At that, if you're literally doing aggressive music, it comes a point where it just cuts itself off and everybody's like toasted. Like, so let's do Psycho Las Vegas as an example, right? So the Rose Ballroom on Saturday, right? The middle day. Mizmor, and I have the list right here. Mizmor, Indian, Frozen. So Mizmor is that terrible, like black metal. I hate myself. Indian made me feel terrible. Frozen Soul,
terrible music.
Frozen Soul, 200 stab wounds, blood incantation. So that's straight up metal back to back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Primitive Man, oh my god,
which is take a knife to your wrist.
Yes, I hate my life. Like I literally, it was uncomfortable. And then it was Liturgy, Tribulation, Show Me the Body, and then Boris, Dance with the Dead to close it. Right, so that wasn't.
Did you watch Dance with the Dead?
Dude, are you kidding me? I made it to like fucking 9 o'clock and I was like, yo, I'm done.
Okay.
Well, and that Saturday we went out to the pool and they flew, and we didn't know this. Abbott flew in as the Bombers they covered Motorhead songs. So Abbott was dressed as Lemmy covering Motorhead. And the Sage banner in between songs, he was like, Ace of Spades. And then they went into Ace of Spades, and they were great, right? But it was them, and then it was Gate Creeper, then it was At the Gates. And Gate Creeper it was so packed between the cabanas and the people. Dan and I were like, I'm like, yo, we got to get out of here. We left. There was at least another 200 people still trying to get into the venue.
You didn't watch At the Gates?
Dude, I couldn't make it. I was exhausted.
Oh,
Tim, it's a
Lord.
fucking 12-hour day.
They're getting older, and they are good live.
Yes, so
kill it.
Both of you need to start saving your fucking allowance. Figure $2,000 for the weekend. We'll go out next year, and we'll fucking live cast it from the show. But yeah, dude, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. So anyway, let's take it
that's
back
why you don't go at noon. You go at fucking 4.
Tim, I wanted to see the early bands.
Okay.
You know, like I wanted to see Mizmor. I wanted to see who was the other one I caught that or Riff Lord. Who was early? I missed Warthog. I missed Intronaut. No Moss was great. I didn't even go to the main stage, which was Bone Thugs, Warpaint, Suicidal Tendencies. Didn't even make that.
But isn't that like, you know, what Tim was saying is that like if you have a completely full heavy lineup, you're prioritizing your headbanging because you only know that you have enough energy for a certain block of time. So you're like, okay, all right, there's these 4 bands that I want to see. If I decide I want to do 8 fucking, you know, heavy metal bands in a row, I know by this time I won't be able to make it for these bands that I actually am passionate for. So I'm going to relax, drink, hang out with my friends, maybe take a nap on the lawn, and then at 4 o'clock I'm gonna go check out, you know, Full of Hell or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
gotta go hit.
Off.
I gotta go hit my CPAP machine for a couple hours. I'll be back.
I mean, that was one of the things we learned. Like, we got to stay on site. I mean, Sunday back to back, we got there for Crematory Stench, which was really, really good. If you're looking for anybody listening, you're looking for some young up and coming like death metal. They were really good. They're from Southern California. But then it was Portrayal of Guilt, Undeath, The Body, Geneva Jacuzzi, which was that kind of insane shit. I definitely liked it. And then Drain. And after Drain, I was like, yo, I'm done. Done. I don't need any more. And I never went to the main stage. The event center was Amun-Ra, Samael, Catatonia, Paradise Lost, High on Fire, Merciful Fate. The pool was closed with Rotting Christ. But I was burnt.
I would have loved that.
I missed and we missed, Dan and I were both killing ourselves. We missed Fugitive, which is the Power Trip guys. We ran over there, but they cut their set short because they only had like a handful of songs. But yeah. So anyway, let's take it back to Woodstock 99. So what did we learn? We learned that if you're going to do a heavy concert, do it right. Don't have people out in the sun. Don't rip people off with money and concessions. And most importantly, if you show respect to the venue, people will respect. If you show respect to your audience will respect the venue, and then
absolutely
it ends on the right place.
I think that's the biggest point of this whole thing is you show proper respect to your attendees. Because the one dude said, I paid $150 fucking this. Why am I going to pick your trash up?
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly true, man. Because you got to think most of your crowd is not going to be people who make $100,000 a year. It's going to be people who work at fucking Kinko's and
Subway,
you know,
whatever,
they're 18 years old. They work at Burger King. They make shit money. They want to come and enjoy themselves. They're not there to pick up your fucking trash.
Yo, when I went to Psycho Las Vegas, I met some kid at the airport. He was staying at the Motel 6 over by the Luxor. He was walking 45 minutes one way every day.
Good for him.
Because that was the cheapest. Look at Shawn. Shawn's like, yo, in the Vegas heat, fucking lunatic. And he made it for Rotting Christ
too. And that's a hike.
He made it to the Rotting Christ set. He was sitting in the
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks once again, Shawn, for joining. People can find you on r/Numetal. We're quickly approaching 20,000 registered users. So please hop in there. There's some good conversation. Old Numetal, new Numetal. Shit, that's not Numetal. The conversation is moving. It's moving, so be there. Tim and I, you can find us at newbreed_podcast on both Twitter and Instagram, newbreedpodcast@gmail.com for your questions, comments, complaints, and concerns. They are automatically deleted. And we also have a Facebook group, which you can find us at, which is getting kind of lit and kind of fun. So hop on in there. So once again, we want to thank Shawn for hopping on. This was not planned, but we're glad he came around. And we want to thank, on behalf of Shawn, Tim, and myself, everybody for tuning in again and listening. So until next time, this is the New Breed Podcast saying peace.